Ready, free?
I'm comfortable now.
Good. Yes, so we are back for another episode, and I think we would like to talk about the reality of being a yoga teacher. Especially nowadays, there are so many teacher trainings popping up. Everyone's offering teacher trainings, and so many people think that this sounds so good to be a yoga teacher. You just practice yoga, you eat healthy, and it sounds glamorous, so many people want to be part of it. So we want to debunk the myth of what is actually being a yoga teacher like, and
the reality,
the
lived reality.
Yeah, because I think it sounds good, and I love being a yoga teacher, but it has its own challenges, especially being in London and have so much competition, and but also I do think doing a 200-hour is a good place to start, but first you need to keep learning, practicing, and teaching, and then doing more teacher training courses just to expand your viewpoints. So I think we want to make sure people actually know what they sign up for when they do teacher trainings.
Yeah, the 200 hours is just the beginning, and we touched on that in our first 2 episodes about why we went into teacher training and kind of what our experience was there. But definitely, like, we were going to talk about, did we feel like yoga teachers after we came out of our first 200-hour teacher training? Like, I did my first one was a 1-month intensive 200-hour in India. I did it at Sampurna Yoga, which I know a lot of people in London have also gone there. I personally, I don't know, it was a good experience, but I wouldn't recommend going there. Just as a disclaimer, if anyone is listening to this and thinking about, I'll go to Sampurna too, I'm not advocating going there, please, for many reasons, and I can get into that on another episode. But when I did my 200-hour teacher training there, I came out and I felt like, holy shit, like, I'm a yoga teacher now? What? Yeah. Like, I could step in front of a class and teach yoga. I just did not feel ready in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in a way, it was totally opposite, because I do feel like our teachers were preparing us so well.
Okay.
So I did it with the yoga people, and they were quite big in London. They are probably still. So I felt like all these other teachers came to do mentoring. You had all these teachers coming and assisting during the course. So you already entered to a community.
Okay.
So first, for me, that was really helpful. The other thing, I mean, I was very young. I just turned 20. Well, I was 22 when I finished my teacher training, so I was quite young. So for me, the scary bit was I went into classes and people like, is she gonna teach the class? She's a bit too young. Also, I looked younger. I'm still, I think, quite young. But it's just more the judgment from the people. Not always, but I did feel like that. But I did feel like I know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna get on with it and see what happens. I was, of course, very nervous, but standing in front of 5 people, 2 people, 20 people is nerve-wracking in the beginning.
Yeah, it is scary.
Finding your own voice. I mean, I used to teach my first classes learning a script, because this is not my first language. I knew what I'm going to teach in yoga, but I had to write down what I'm going to say, like, hey guys, my name is Melinda. I wrote all this down and learned it word by word, and that's how I taught the first few months, because I was so nervous about that. But as soon as I started talking and I knew what I'm going to be talking about, I was fine. So for me, I mean, I think it depends on what kind of teacher training you've done and how much confidence they put on you to be like, yes, you can stand out there and teach.
I feel like what you just said about doing it in London and having a community and mentors coming in, we didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a hugely beneficial thing to have as a developing teachers. Like, you need to have support. And I did my teacher training and went back to Canada, and I didn't know anybody, like, except for my original teachers in Edmonton. And when I came back from India, where was I living? I think I moved back in with my mom for a couple months. And then I ended up moving to Calgary in Alberta, because I had packed up from Edmonton, quit all my jobs, gone to India, gone traveling for a while, and yeah, came back and like I didn't have any of the skills to know how to approach studios. Like, where do I even have to start? Like, how to build a website, how to do anything. I didn't have any of those skills. Like, I came from a science background.
I think what I find the new teacher trainings are better at is teaching you these kind of things. I mean, we were not taught about how to do your website, how to market yourself. Maybe they taught us how to approach studios, but I don't really remember. But the good thing with us was like I could cover anyone from the yoga people because they were like, well, we trust you, we're trained with the same people, so come and teach my class. Obviously, they didn't give us our tri yoga classes, but what I could cover in like small studios. But I think it's nowadays they do teach that on courses, like they do digital marketing, all the things I don't want to do, but we have to do.
Yeah, and we both know that, like, having been in this job role for so long, is like you have to have these other skills. Like, there's no way to avoid it anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you just have a community that's willing to practice yoga with you and you don't really need the money.
Oh God, yeah. Because that's the other problem. I think people do think that you earn well as a self-employed, or yoga class costs £22, so the teachers must earn like £50-70 a class. And I mean, I wish it would be the case, but I think the people need to know the reality of is we get underpaid for teaching an hourly class. So we average nowadays like probably £30, and I remember I used to cover classes, they paid us £18. And I only did it because I had no experience and needed to get the hours in. But it was a hot studio near Old Street. You had to do 3, 4, 5 classes back to back.
What?
Yes. It was
5?
And I was just doing it for covering a friend. And I was like, this doesn't make me feel good. This is very hot hill. This is disgusting. And I tried to invoice for £20 because it was like £18. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. And then I was like, can you adjust your invoice? Like, well, how can you pay £18 for the teacher? And that was 2016, but still £18 was very bad. Well, I mean, we're not much better off now getting the £30 for classes. And if people know that you have to count in that you have to travel there, probably it takes half an hour to an hour to get there. You have to be there 15 minutes before the class. You want to stay there 15 minutes after to chat to people because I'm interested in what's happening in their life. And then you have to get home, and then so you work 3 hours and you got £30, so it's minimum wage.
Yeah, it's £10 an hour. You're right, and it's hard.
And you can't do 10 classes a day. Like people work 10 hours a day.
No,
you can't because impossible, no time, and so.
And even getting that many classes is so competitive. Like
too many
trying
teachers.
To get poorly paid positions.
Yes.
Well, because when I started teaching yoga in Calgary, first of all, I was terrified to step into that role of standing in front of a room of people. I felt like I didn't know anything. I grew up really, really shy.
Yeah.
Until I was in university, and we kind of had to, in science, when we're doing thesis and research work, you have to do presentations.
Yeah.
In front of doctors, and that kind of broke me into being okay presenting. But then coming into yoga and teaching a new discipline where I'm like unsure about my knowledge and stuff like that, like it's very nerve-wracking, and you're always in your head standing at the front of the room like, oh, I forgot the posture, I can't remember all the music or no music, like, oh, everybody can't do it in the class, like I need to slow it down for everybody, like you're just overthinking everything. And I forget how much we were getting paid in Canada. I think it was like $25 or something like that.
So it's very similar.
So when I was trying to get classes there, I also had to work at a restaurant and a bar. So I was sometimes working quite late, like at the bar, like we'd be there till 3:34 in the morning, counting the liquor, weighing the bottles after work and counting out the till, and then getting up and teaching. You got your first yoga class Sunday morning, 8 o'clock, and I'm like, I'll be there. But I've got home at 4:30 in the morning. Do you know what I mean? Like, the lifestyles were not compatible, but
you need to.
I chose to do that line of work because it was easy to get a job because I knew a lot of people in the hospitality industry at home, and you get paid really well in tips in Canada.
Yeah.
So I knew I could still afford to live, but the timings and the being around liquor all the time and partying and etc., it wasn't compatible to then going and teaching yoga in the morning. But I kind of felt stuck there because I didn't know what else I could do for work at the same time that I was building my yoga repertoire or like portfolio classes.
Yes.
Because there was not as many studios in Calgary as there is here too, so the opportunities just didn't come up to get new classes.
Well, I think, having too many studios is not easy either, because then, and also, it's good to have so many studios, but you have so many teachers that I think the competition in London is mental, especially being a female yoga teacher. I heard from many male friends of mine that sometimes they were offered classes without even auditioning, and we do auditions.
Yeah, some of my guy friends have told me the same thing.
Yeah, and I remember doing auditions where you go in like, okay guys, you have 3 minutes to show your best moves that shows how you're gonna calm people down, how you adjust them, and who you are. And I was like, I'm too stressed out to be myself.
Yeah.
How can I show myself? And especially 3 minutes, so it's very brutal. And even if they give you more time, I'm always very thankful. They 10 minutes is like luxury. So I think it's just so hard to get classes, or if you don't know the right people.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to be given so many classes. And I would recommend people not to jump straight into being a full-time yoga teacher, because as you said, you need something else to pad it out, because you can't pay your rent, especially living in London. How can you pay the amount of rent from £30, £20 classes?
Yeah. In Canada, I could afford it because the cost of living, it's still pricey there, but it's like not as crazy expensive as London.
That's good though.
But then moving here, I didn't know anybody. Yeah. Well, I knew one person. I knew my friend Katie, who's a yoga teacher as well. We did our training together in India. But other than that, I knew nobody. I didn't know who any of the teachers were. I knew nothing. I moved here. I didn't even know if they really practice yoga that much in London, if I'm totally honest.
When did you move?
Why?
When?
In 2015. So I got a visa because my grandfather was born in England, and so I could access a ancestry visa. Otherwise, there's no way I would have been able to move here and be able to freelance and be a sole trader, because you have to get a job with other Canadian visas to come to the UK.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, so that if I didn't have that, there's no way that I would be here still teaching.
And we just walked in because I was pre-Brexit. I just walked in and started working,
Yeah, you guys need visas too, right?
Well, not anymore. I'm settled, but I guess now. I don't even know what's the rule now. Like, what do you have to do? But probably.
Yeah.
Well, things change.
All the logistics of being foreign.
Yeah, the London scene is interesting because you have so many popular teachers and Insta famous teachers, and I think it's changed so much the past 8 years, how it formed and how studios changed as well. I think it's interesting to see and be part of it.
Yeah, pre and post pandemic, the landscape totally changed.
Definitely changed, but yeah, referring back to 200 hours and being a teacher, did you ever have a bad experience in the beginning with going to teaching classes, being actually in classes? Were they all everyone's very welcoming, no stress?
No, in Canada, people were more willing to give me a shot.
Okay, that's good.
But it was harder to get those because there was very established teachers who had classes for decades.
And then
And if I'm honest with you, I can still go back to Calgary now, and some of the studios, they still have the same teachers teaching the same classes when I started yoga. So if that there's no turnover of people, there's no room to get into those places. There is, but as a full-time job, I didn't see how it would work with, but at that point I was just like thinking about teaching classes. I didn't know about all the other stuff that you could do as a yoga teacher, especially as a new one. You can't just like jump in and start teaching workshops, because you need to build up your skill set and your knowledge and be confident in being able to deliver something like that. So with classes, when I moved to London, because I didn't know anybody here who worked at studios, or any of the teachers in studios, or even what studios were nice places to work, like I was totally green. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I was just like, I opened up Google Maps and I wrote in yoga studio.
What comes up first?
Well, just it would highlight all the like red pins of yoga studio, and I was living in Bromley by Bow, so East London, and I see, you know, these yoga studios dotted around. I forget all the ones I applied to, but I applied to all of them, and mostly you don't get responses. Yeah. Right?
Still nowadays.
Or if they do respond, it's like a polite response that says, you know, due to a high volume applicants, we will keep your application on record. And I had like a CV and a welcome letter, you know, all that stuff that you do to apply for a job. Yeah, and even you'd go in and introduce yourself, and they're like, oh, we actually only hire people who do our own teachers training program. I'm like,
oh, I hate that.
Yeah, and by this point, when I moved to London, I had done 200 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do another 200-hour teacher training program to maybe get one class at the studio. Like, that's crazy.
That's ridiculous as well, isn't it?
So those ones I just wrote off. And then I guess I didn't really realize how much experience you needed to teach at some of the bigger studios. And I would go and apply there, and they'd be like, who are you?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I'm nobody. I'm just this Canadian girl who moved to London to chase her dream job. And like, it was so intimidating stepping into those places. And
I think even nowadays sometimes they are.
Yeah.
I mean,
see, I don't know. It's been so long.
I think, sometimes I feel like some scenes, like some yogic scene, can be quite cliquey. Like,
for sure.
You go into some classes and you feel like, I've never been here, and I feel like I'm being watched, although it's like I may be set on someone else's space. So I think in London there is like people like that. It gets very competitive, which I didn't think. I thought yoga is about
like
helping
in the class.
each other. Yeah, I mean, I remember going to some class and then I sat down and getting side-eyed by a woman. It's like, oh my god. And then after a while she turned out, by the way, that's my friend's spot. Like, do you want me to move?
What, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I've never had anything like that.
Oh god, yes, I did. And then I was like, she's like, no, you don't have to. So I should. But then also her friend came, and then she was like, no, say. It was all fine. But, I mean, I had also, being a co-ed teacher as well, because you're trying to get classes with covering other people's classes. And I think there's nothing more nerve-wracking than actually covering someone else's classes.
Yeah.
Because students go to a teacher because they like them, they connect with them. And then you throw in a co-ed teacher, and they already like, who are you? And I did feel, I'm still nervous about covering classes, but nowadays I start the class like, I might be different than your teacher, just please stick around and go with the flow, because I've been walked out on before. But yeah, I remember I went to one class and this woman constantly like, excuse me, is this going to be like this? Stopped me in the middle of the class. Well, no, not middle, first consultation. Second consultation, excuse me, is this going to be Ashtanga? And again, I was like, oh my god, this is very stressful. No, this is a normal flow class. Third time, she stood up and asked, like, excuse me, have you ever been to X and Y's classes? I'm like, oh my god. So I had to stop the class. And I just, being challenged on co-ed classes so much, I think I've now grown a thick skin.
Yeah,
but you need it because people are going to be, because it's their personal space, and that's where they can be vulnerable and you can be triggering their trauma. So I think being a yoga teacher, you need to know you need to be okay with yourself, because people are going to throw you out there, shitting problems on you, and you need to be okay to receive it and like, is it me or is it something they throw at me, and stay sane with it. So
not take it on board and home with you.
Yeah. So I think people need to know that it's not like, oh, you're just going to teach a class and walk off. No, it's emotional work. It's a lot of things can come up, and people share very intimate details of their life because they trust you. And I think that was really surprising for me, how much people told me about their life, and like, you know me for 5 classes, you're telling me a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's good because you feel like, okay, I'm building a trust, and you feel good about it, but also it's scary because there will be things that you can't deal with, but then knowing
you're not trained with like psychology and mental health things, unless you are, like some yoga teachers definitely are, but I would say that most of us aren't. And then you're right, people tell you these deep things and you're like, I don't know what to do with this information, like, thanks for, I know how to handle it now, but at the beginning when you're a brand new teacher, it's a lot. It's a lot for sure.
But also, like, nowadays being so much social media out there, I think it's interesting to see that you see all these like quick reels about how you should teach a class, or what's wrong, what's right. And I think there's so much information out there, and not all of us are osteopaths, not all of us are physiotherapists, not all of us are psychologists. So, and there's so many judgmental reels out there, like, oh, don't say this and don't say that to class because it's very not valid. And I agree. I mean, I used to say things that I've never said like point your toes this way, but there are people still teaching that way, that right foot forward, back foot at 45 degrees, or I don't even know. And I do agree it's not valid, but there's kind of like a shaming culture coming up on social media as well.
Yeah, there is.
This is not right what you say, stop saying it. And how can you be a new teacher having all this judgment coming from everywhere? And I even find myself like, should I post anything or someone's going to be judging me for it? And I think I researched things, I learned a lot throughout the years, I'm still learning things, but we all make mistakes. But I think that's quite scary. I would be very scared to be a new teacher because too much information, too much things out there.
No, you're right. And I feel that too when I see information like that posted. Even now, having taught for 11 years, and I have so much experience about like, oh, you can't say this, it's not like this. It's just too much information. And there are, like you said, things that shouldn't be said anymore, like
twist that toxifies you, or that's my favorite, I think. Or
like silly things like that. It's good information, it's valuable, but it's the way that you say it that is important. To be like, you can't say it like this. Like, maybe if you've been saying this, like, try rephrasing it, like, you can say it in a kinder way that doesn't make you feel so judged. But that's just social media. It's like all these people just putting things out there to get views and likes and trying to get their voice heard. I guess, I mean, we do the same thing.
Yeah, we do.
But you try to do it in a way that's like kind
approach.
Or I hope is viewed as kind anyway. I don't know how people people can take tone of voice online as they want to because they're just reading it and they hear it.
No, that's different. I think confusing is with all the information. I mean, it sounds like I'm not recommending to people to be a yoga teachers, because I do, because I think it's a fabulous practice to share, but it does have its own challenges, I think, and it's important people are informed before they take, especially paying so much money for teacher trainings nowadays, and just, do you actually need to or want to invest in? But also you can do teacher trainings just for yourself, just to learn more about yourself.
A lot of people do. Like, a lot of my students have told me they have, just to deepen their practice, which I think is brilliant. I mean, they are definitely an investment.
Yeah.
And my teacher training, especially my second one at the SAP School of Yoga in Canada, was very, very transformative.
Yeah. And
I can't recommend highly enough. My teacher, Ramin, like, he's still my go-to teacher. He's incredible. But yeah, it's hard. It's a hard job, and it's definitely like intimidating stepping out of your 200-hour teacher training into being a teacher. But there's a lot of pros to the job too. Like, I love it. The people you meet through it are incredible.
Yes.
Like, yoga brings so many different types of people together
from all walks of life. Yeah.
And when people share their stories with you, like, things get deep and it's powerful, and you like learn a lot about other people and who they are and other viewpoints, and learning from your students really shapes you as a teacher too, because
Definitely.
you see how people move. You see how they react to your cues. They see how you interact with that, or they interact with you, and the adjustments. Like, I learn from my students so much.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that's like such an invaluable part about becoming a yoga teacher, is like the actual put into practice of the job.
I mean, yes, I think having the teacher training and then letting it settle and actually putting it in practice, you definitely learn more from your students than actually from your teacher training, because you see bodies, you see different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can return back to it, because there's so much to talk about being a yoga teacher, and if anyone would have any questions, we were always happy to hear them. But I think we can wrap it up for now, and then we can talk next time about how it changed and how we see things happening, or where the whole business and yoga is going, because it's becoming a business.
Yeah.
So yes, there was so much to talk about. I think we should wrap it up for today.
Yeah, for sure. And we could talk about, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, how everything's shifted. And thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.